You're listening to the Unshamed podcast. We talk about important topics that are culturally taboo when it comes to the female body, mind, and soul. We want to break down shame that surrounds these topics so that women can be empowered in their everyday lives. Make sure to like and subscribe and share this with your friends. Hi, guys, and welcome to the Unshamed podcast. I'm Katy, and Unshamed is the place where we talk about things that are typically taboo in society, topics that are generally things that you wouldn't talk about around the kitchen table, you know. But this is why we do Unshamed, is that we want to bring stories out into safe places where we can break down shame walls. Unshamed is sponsored by Zoe Community, and Zoe is an Irish organization that looks to empower women in crisis pregnancy and helps train people in how to support women in crisis pregnancy. Today, we have the lovely Allie Burris, who Allie and I go way back.
Way back.
How far back?
I think 2005.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's like, is that, I'm trying to do the math.
16.
Oh my
16 years.
gosh.
Yeah.
That's a long time. Are we old?
No.
No, we're not. No, I was like thinking about like young kids smoking pot the other day. And I'm like, do kids use pot? Is that the word they still use or no? Is that not the word? I don't know. Anyway, Allie works with university students. So I'm like, Allie, I'm looking to you for the definition of this terminology or whatever. But she's like,
I should have
I don't
studied.
know. What should
I don't
say?
know. I think that it is still pot. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah. We're not that old. Anyway.
I think pot is an everlasting term.
Yeah, people.
That's been...
Yeah. So we don't talk about pot on this podcast, you know, but that was just a sidetrack. Anyway, Allie works with an organization called Chi Alpha, and it was through Chi Alpha that we actually met all those years ago at university. And I guess you were a freshman maybe, or?
I was a freshman.
Yeah, and I was, I think, a sophomore perhaps. So that's first year college, second year of college for the Irish people listening. So today, I'm here in Baton Rouge, and Allie lives here, and she works with LSU Chi Alpha. So LSU is the university that we were both at. And I wanted to come and have a conversation with Allie because Allie has such a cool life story. She'd probably be like, no, it's just normal. But Allie is a really great...
Feels normal to me.
Yeah. But I just wanted to have you share your story, how you got to where you are today, basically, and kind of some key points along the way where you felt like your life made a change for the better and sort of, yeah. So if you want to just share that, however much you want to share, that would be amazing.
Sure. If we were to flash back into the mind and the heart of 18-year-old Allie, heading to college for the very first time, leaving home, and what my expectations and hopes and dreams would make us all just laugh. It was my hopes and dreams and expectations were a good time and a party. What was your major? My major was a good time. Yeah. What are you getting a degree in? Excellent party skill. Oh, goodness. Anyways, so I came to college with the Lord nowhere on my mind. And I came to college certainly not expecting to encounter the Lord. And I cannot imagine the trajectory of my life and the trajectory of the decisions that I was making at that time, where it would have landed me had I not encountered the Lord.
Yeah.
And my goodness, it's so simple. I was hanging out in a dorm room with a bunch of girls and started to become friends with these girls. And every once in a while, they would talk to me about the Lord or they would ask me questions. But they spent time with me for an entire semester as I continued to live a more typical college experience. But after about a semester, I had gone back home for winter break, and I had a hard time back home. And I came back, and I was processing that with one of my friends, and she had been praying for me for a while. And I don't even understand what it would have felt like for her to sit next to me. And after praying for me for so long and seeing not even a glimmer of hope or change in my life, no new openness to the Lord, nothing.
Yeah.
But then after an entire semester of time, me sitting across from her and saying, Jessica, I don't know. For some reason,
I know her.
You know Jessica.
I know.
Of course
Gosh,
you know
yeah.
Jessica. Yeah.
Yeah.
For some reason, I feel like I just need the Lord. And my goodness, after that, I was brought so quick to a Chi Alpha worship service, which in and of itself is comical because I had never been in a worship experience like that.
Were you raised Catholic or nothing, or what were you?
I didn't have a ton of church background. No, I had a little bit of a Methodist experience when I was young. But
yeah, a lot of listeners would have really like a negative experience with church, or church is very like, church is where shame lives for a lot of people. And so how did you feel like, did you experience any anything that made you feel like, oh wow, the shame walls are broken down coming to church? Or, honestly, did you feel like, there's some issues here with shame when it came to Christianity, with church, with anything like that?
I do remember feeling pretty messy and thinking like, oh gosh, everybody here's really put together. And I remember thinking everybody's families were like really intact and put together. And so my family's like blended upon blended. And my parents were going through a divorce at the time even. And
I remember that.
And so I remember thinking everybody's families especially were really, really like normal. I don't think I even knew how abnormal I was until I met people and was like, wow, I feel really different.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that too. Like I didn't grow up with two parents, just one. So I felt like a little bit like when I would go to people's houses and they would have two parents who were like alive and talking to each other and loving each other, I'd be like, wow.
Yeah.
So like,
What
it's like
is-
looking
what is
into
your
the,
life?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
this is so crazy. But yeah, so you felt like a bit weird and
I did. But you know what I think was unique for me is, and I've always felt like this decision was probably questionable of, our leader, our pastors at the time, but they let me start leading a life group, which was like our small group Bible studies really early. And I'm incredibly thankful to them for that experience. I also question them, like, who thought I was ready for something like that?
but they believed in you.
So, but it turned I think it protected me quickly because then my connections with,
That's just a dog, y'all. It's fine.
it's my
It's
dog.
Hank. He's great.
But they, it connected me quickly with people who also did not know the Lord. And we were all really young on our journey with the Lord. We were all very messy and we kind of just were all in that together.
Yeah.
So it almost like got me out of that church bubble really fast because then I went ahead and started leading my own life group. Well, who would I invite to a life group? The people that I know. Who did I know?
Yeah. Normal, average people everywhere.
I didn't know enough church people to even really experience that.
In a way, that's probably really good, So, yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad you had that experience. So let's kind of switch gears and kind of into more of like the shame factor of things. How do you feel like you've dealt with shame at various points in your life, like before you met Jesus and then after that point in your life? I guess what were your experiences with shame as a younger person versus now? So like life choices or things that might have happened to you that you felt, I need to keep this secret. Versus now, like how have you like processed that?
I mean, I think of shame as the stuff that it's the parts of us that we want to hide.
Yeah.
Over the last couple years, I've done some even trying to understand my story more and trying to look back at different pieces of my story and how it has all thread together to make me kind of who I am and then how I understand all of the, I mean, sometimes life just feels just wild. And, but I think when you look at your story, and I think the way that I interact with my story now is being able to understand, like, there's pieces of my story that I really just hate. Like, just
everybody has that. Nobody goes, boy, my life has been amazing so far. You know?
Yeah, there's pieces of my story that I really just hate. Yeah. And I think in my more recent past, I've learned to separate being able to hate my story, but not hate myself. And see those as two different things.
Right.
And I can have discomfort with my story, and I can have discomfort with decisions I've made or things that I've done or parts of my past, but that being able to see that as a discomfort with my story over a discomfort with me and who I am.
Yeah.
Now, I sure wish I would have had that clarity of thought at 18, or in the young years. Yeah. My goodness, what could that have protected us all from?
But I remember like meeting you and thinking, like, all I thought about Allie was like, Allie's awesome. She's such a fun person. She's amazing. And that's what other people see. Like, when we see ourselves, we're like, we can have the temptation to be like, ugh, me, boo. But,
well, Katy, I remember our mutual friend, very close friend of yours, Kristen Shipp.
Yes.
And so she was sorry.
She's going to be listening like, come on, I'm still alive.
She is a woman who deeply loves the Lord. And I remember sitting with her at some point and talking to her about my life. And I remember her saying, you know, Allie, sometimes it's the girls that really look like they have it the most together that are hurting the most on the inside.
Like, I have always known her as a person who...
Oh, she'll cut you, but good. Like
discernment, like to see exactly what's going. That's
so Kristen. Yeah. But I remember feeling so known and so scared by that. Like, she's figured me out. Like, I have everybody else here fooled, but she's figured it out.
Yep.
And it was the breaking down of me realizing, I mean, humor is my defense mechanism. And that is where, like, when I feel shamed and scared and like I want to hide, I often hide behind being really funny. And it's great because I love being funny.
Yeah.
I could have a lot worse defense mechanisms, you know? Like, I could do other things. Not to defend my own defense mechanism. Well, that's how, anyway.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people would use humor as a defense mechanism. A lot of our Irish listeners, they would laugh hearing me say this, but everything's a joke in Ireland. Nothing is serious. It's hard to have a serious conversation about anything unless maybe your arm's falling off. And that might be a time to talk about something serious. Maybe not. You know, a lot of people might joke and stuff if their arm is falling off. But
the Irish, they would be a fan. I was just shopping on Etsy for a new journal, and I found a journal that the front of it said, "At least all this trauma has made me effing hilarious." And I was like, if there was a mantra to explain my life,
you got to send me the link because I feel like I need this journal in my life. That would be great.
It's like,
oh yeah. Oh well. Actually, speaking of trauma, that kind of is, I hate to say a nice segue, but it leads us into the next question I had. That you experienced losing a child a few years ago named Emma, and you lost her. What was it? 30 weeks or?
Right around 31 weeks.
31 weeks. And you had said before that you were cool, like talking a little bit about that. And I just wanted to ask, did you experience shame surrounding losing Emma or no? Like that part of your story, did you have any part of you that felt like, I don't want to share this? Or did you feel like you could be open with it, you know?
Oh gosh. And what a complicated part of my story. Yeah. But, I experience shame in every way. I think one of the ways that stands out to me, even present tense, is, Emma passed away almost 3 years ago. And there are parts of me, a lot of parts of me, that is still deeply destroyed by that. And anybody who's grieved or suffered some level of pain and trauma knows that it's really easy to feel like the rest of the world has moved on very quickly and that you're like still really, really just destroyed. The sentence I said to Jonathan for forever is, I'm ruined. Like I will never get through this. I am ruined. And I think that I experienced a shame that maybe I put on myself, maybe people put it on me, I'm not sure, but a shame of feeling like I should be better. I shouldn't be struggling as much as I am. And I think Christians, I have a ton of thoughts on how we can respond to our own pain and suffering and how as a community we respond to the pain and suffering as others. But one of the things that has really struck me is our impatience with ourselves. Because I think when you are a person who believes in the death and resurrection of Jesus and you believe that there is hope in him and redemption of all stories, when you know how the story ends, it's really easy to rush yourself to the ending.
Yes. Yeah.
And want to be there. But there are parts of me that as a mother, I will always be a mother who's known a really, really deep heartbreak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's always going to be hurt pieces of me. And that doesn't mean that I'm without faith.
Right.
But that I act like I'm through that. You see how it's so easy for us to just like jump to a past tense like I used to. And as Christians, that's another thing. We really love a past tense, Jesus did something, present tense story. That's our favorite kind of stories.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, these things used to be so bad. And then Jesus fixed it all.
And it's all magically
and
better.
Everything's better.
Yeah.
And that's just not a reality for me.
For me either. No.
I am a both and. I am a heartbreak and healing person. I am full of joy in the goodness of the Lord, but also struggle with depression and loss and just a hurt heart of the realities.
That's good. I mean, I feel like that people who follow Jesus have like a certain expectation they put on themselves for grief. And then people who don't choose to follow Jesus, they look at Christians and they're like, oh, they all have their lives together. They're perfect. They're blah, blah, blah. They don't suffer or whatever. That is just not true. That expectation should not be there because we're human and we all have, we make steps backward, we make steps forward. We struggle like crazy constantly sometimes, most of the time.
I think a combination of Western society and Western Christianity just has set us up to be terrible at pain and suffering.
Yeah.
So we really like to have control of things. We want to know that we have control. So we want to be able to say things like, man, if I would have gone to a doctor sooner, if I would have noticed something, or what if I would have had a better doctor or a faster doctor, or, Emma was born alive and she lived for a short amount of time while they were operating on her, trying to save her. Yeah. And so constantly thinking like, well, did I even have the right doctor doing? Was that girl good? Do I know if that girl was good?
Yeah. I know.
What if it would have been somebody better? You know, or did I do enough? You know, and it's the reality of surrender that comes with pain and suffering, and the reality of what I'm really saying when I say all of those things is I want control over this. Yeah, and I feel like control over the outcome of this terrible situation should have been mine to have. Yeah. I should have been able to control the doctor, or science should have fixed this, Watch us as people suffering and working through COVID right now. What do we all say? Like, science should fix this. Yeah. We have no patience to be in the pain of a world pandemic at all. And nobody's got time for that. We don't have patience for that. We have no emotional capacity for that. What we want is science.
We need a clean, wrapped up ending.
Yeah, science, get to this. Shut this mess down and make my life normal and good again.
Yeah.
But honestly, I did the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah, I did too. I'm still doing it. I'm still going through a grief process. Yeah, I think we're all worldwide grieving. What we lost. So sometimes I'll think, what was it like before COVID? And I'll like reminisce in old photos and stuff like seriously. You're right. Like we have no idea how to cope with suffering. We're not really equipped for that. And I know, like I've been to different places around the world, places where they'd be considered third world. And their idea of death and suffering, or their way of dealing with it, is just so much different than how we tend to do it. If they're suffering, we have to mitigate it at all costs. If someone dies, it's deeply tragic for everyone, but for some reason, we don't view it as a natural a life occurrence as they do. So I don't know. Yeah, it's very hard. So, like, I feel like what you're saying right now with like your very balanced view, I'm patting you on the back of suffering and shame and all this. If your younger Allie self, who is not as seasoned as you are now, was sitting across from you, what would you say to her about your thoughts on shame, freedom from shame, and like how to deal with things that come into your life, whether it's a personal choice or something that happens to you, but how to walk through something like that you feel like you can't tell anybody, If young Allie was sitting here, you'd be like,
I have a lot of compassion for young Allie. And I think for many of us, when it comes to understanding our stories and understanding who we are in our stories and things of that nature, so much of that is going to come through being able to have some compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
Even the current lock screen on my phone right now says, this is my current mantra: in honor of the freedom Christ bought for me, I will not engage in attacking myself anymore.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so that's how I'm trying to live right now, is that I'm trying to live in honor of the freedom that Christ bought for me.
Yeah. And
so I don't even know how I would speak to Deep Allie the realities of the freedom that Christ has bought for her. But I want to live in honor of that freedom.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to continue to attack myself anymore or engage in self-hatred anymore, because I want to live in honor of what Jesus has done.
Yeah.
And so I would speak to young Allie with a lot of compassion. Yeah. I would really try to pull her eyes towards Jesus and off of hating herself.
Yeah.
And I would really work on her seeing her story and understanding herself with a little bit of compassion. Sometimes we're doing the best we can with the things we have.
Yeah.
And even though there's pieces of my story where I really didn't make some great decisions, I can look at myself with some compassion in those decisions and say,
yeah,
you're doing the best you could with what you had.
Yeah. And knowing that everybody around you is probably doing the same thing. Like we were all like, like for instance, me sitting across from young Allie and going, she's so cool. And I'm thinking I'm the most massive dork that ever lived, because I was like, how am I going to function around all these normal people? And little did I know, Allie was sitting across from me, desperately using humor as a defense mechanism to shield herself from pain. I had no idea. And everybody listening to this knows, someone who's using some kind of defense mechanism, whether it's just being super quiet, super funny, super sarcastic, whatever it is, a shield from pain or sharing too much about their story. Either you're listening or somebody who is. So have compassion. I feel like that's the wrap up. If we can wrap this up at all, is be nice to yourself and be nice to other people. Really, I know it's very trite to say that, especially if you follow Jesus. I feel like you need to treat them how Jesus treats you, which is Jesus doesn't see, he doesn't see all the things that humans would see. Humans would see broken pieces. They would see not the right fit, or not measuring up, or just not being good enough, especially in our Western eyes, where we are sometimes critical and harsh with other people's measuring up to things. Jesus doesn't see us like that. He sees us for who we are, and not for the broken pieces that we sometimes are tempted to see ourselves as. So in light of that, be nice to yourself. But anyways, thank you, Allie. We just talked about all kinds of stuff that is really deep, really difficult. And I'm thanking you so much for sharing a bit of yourself with us. Guys, tune in next time. Allie's going to talk more about her work experience and being on campus, and the messy part and the wonderful parts and everything in between of working with students. And it's really an amazing job. So tune in next time and listen to Allie share more of her story. But until then, keep living unshamed.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Unshamed podcast. Join us next time for another topic that we hope empowers you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with your friends.